Hi, this is episode number 10, and I'm going to mark this one by telling you the date. It is August 10, 2020, and the reason I want to acknowledge that date is because it is my grandson's birthday. Nathaniel was born this morning, so I'm excited as a grandfather. I can't, it's one thing to have kids, but it's another thing to have your kids have kids. It's a totally different view on life and very enjoyable. So I'm thrilled. A little saddened on the COVID thing, but this will all work out. I'm not going to be too despairing over it because the bottom line is every grandparent wants their grandkids healthy and well, and I'm one of those, and so I will live with the inability perhaps to hold this little guy for a little bit, but that's okay. We'll get through this. I had a meeting with some patients this morning that made me think about the difference between infection and inflammation. And I'm gonna leave this with you today because, as I've said before, we're going to get into a lot of these things. I've talked about inflammation, and it's part of the podcast subtitle about dealing with inflammation, chronic inflammation. So let me give you the analogy I gave these folks this morning, and that is, if you're in a fight, let's imagine you're a boxer and you're in a fight in the ring and your opponent is boxing you. From your perspective, the opponent, who is the attacker, is the infection. And your response to the attacker, the way you hold your fists up and you block blows and all the rest of it, is your response, and that's inflammation. So if we look at it from a biologic viewpoint, the infection is the invader. It's it's the injury or the invader. So you'll have a response to that. Your body will have to repair or heal after trauma. So infection is the trauma, and your response is inflammatory, the inflammation. That's interesting in the sense that the original aspect of bacterial infections goes back centuries, and there was a postulate called Koch's postulate, where essentially you could prove that the illness was caused by the bacteria, by growing the bacteria and then injecting them into an animal, and the animal gets sick, and you can draw out and culture the bacteria, and you could repeat this. Essentially, it was showing that you could make something sick by the bacteria. The problem with periodontal disease is that there isn't a single bacteria, and we aren't even sure that it's even a few. It could be many, and they're working somewhat together, and it's not just that, it's also the inflammatory response they cause. In other words, what's causing the destruction of the tissues in the body are not just what the bacteria bring in terms of their toxins and the ways they can cause injury, but also the way they turn on the inflammatory response, which are the white blood cells and the antibodies coming from the body to do battle with them, end up, if it's chronic, meaning it's lasting long enough, it will injure and destroy normal tissues. So it's the combination of the infection and the inflammation, the battle as it's going back and forth, that results in the net loss of the bone and attachment around the teeth. This inflammatory response has become incredibly important with regards to how the research is going in areas of rheumatoid arthritis, GI problems, Crohn's disease, diabetes, and other things, because a lot of these illnesses or diseases are a combination of some external factor that may have caused an injury or turned something on. But then it results in the body turning on an inflammatory response. And in the world of autoimmune diseases, autoimmune means that the immune system that was set up to fight off external enemies is turned on to the tissues of the body. And all of a sudden we have things, our own body is attacking ourselves. In rheumatoid arthritis, that's in the areas of the joints. Lupus erythematosus is another one where other tissues of the body can be attacked by the body's own immune system. And the other interesting element about all of this is that if we can reduce the inflammation in the mouth, we can affect these other systems as well. So, and that's important because this is so simple to do. We can essentially with a laser kill off all the organisms in a single appointment or two. It doesn't matter. Clean everything up. And the difference between that and putting somebody on a high dose antibiotic is that usually the antibiotic isn't enough to remove the organisms, where the laser itself can do a more efficient job. And there's not a systemic action to the laser, it's very focused. So that's also different. If you want to use an antibiotic, a person takes that and digests it and it goes into the bloodstream, kills off the bacteria in the mouth perhaps, but maybe it wipes out the stomach flora and a bunch of other good organisms. So it's not always the best way to go is to overtreat with an antibiotic when you can do something more specific. And again, the mouth is a very direct and easy way to address a lot of inflammatory disease and can have an impact on other diseases. Again, we'll talk about all of this as we go in other times and places. So that's what I've got today for you. Have a good one. Take care.